Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Thursday morning, June the 16th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Excuse me, and the chat room's open, and I did pop the link into there to what I want to talk about today. And thank everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I've got like 31,000 shows listened to or something. There's a lot of people tuning in, and I do appreciate you taking the time to do that because I do a lot of shows, and you know, it's hard to keep up with my shows for myself, so I know, it's a lot of work keeping up with my shows, so thanks very much for doing that and for tuning in. And, I just want to be one more voice really speaking out against abuse and standing up for child rights, and, this is my healing journey here in the morning, and I just want to be one more voice of encouragement really out here for people who are survivors of abuse, right? So you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows because I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a sensitive subject, and, some people maybe find it bothers them. So if you think the topics of abuse or any kind of violence or anything like that will bother you, then you need to turn the show off because it is your discretion to listen to all of my shows. And you want to know that it's okay for you to listen to them and that it won't bother you, right? That it won't be hurting my feelings if you turn them off. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show. Have an adult, somebody who's older, listen to the show with you, and then they can help you decide whether or not you should be listening because there's a lot of adult content on my show, mature material. So, I just think that young people should be protected at all times, so you need to know how to keep yourself safe online. So have someone listen to my show with you, and then they can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to it or not, right? Age appropriately. And so thanks, everybody. We'll just get right into what I was looking at here. We're still on Robert Burney's webpage. It's called Joy to You and Me, and this is www.joy2mbu.com. And this next portion is /recovery_codependency.htm. And he's got some great stuff here. And he's a Robert Burney, Burney. He's a codependence counselor, a therapist, and a grief counselor. He's also a spiritual teacher, and he's an author. And he's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls. And I don't have a book. I'd like to get a hold of that book someday when I get some extra money. And I like what he has to say here on his web pages. He's got tons and tons of web pages. It's all dealing with codependency, boundary work, inner child work, relationship stuff. I mean, you just go through his site map and you can see that he's just written so much stuff, and he's, it's pretty inclusive. So anybody who wants to take a look, please do. The link is in the chat room. And, I find this very helpful for myself to look at, and especially dealing with codependency and whatnot, because I'm trying to learn how to change some of these behaviors that I was brought up to behave a certain way. And so I'm trying to recognize some of the unhealthy behaviors and learn what they are and then change them. So this stuff is very helpful for that. It shows people like me who may not even know that I'm doing things that are codependent or that I need to set some boundaries or whatnot. It kind of helps me to see what kind of boundary work I need to do, what kind of work I need to do on some of my behaviors, because I'll recognize certain things within it. So hopefully it's helping other people. And this next page here that I wanted to look at sort of went through, we were looking at yesterday and last week, the codependency and also the recovery portion of the codependency pages that he's got. And this particular page is called Recovery from Codependency, Inner Child Healing. And so we did look at some of his inner child stuff already, like probably about 3-4 weeks ago or whatever, or a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago. It's been a while. But I wanted to look at this next page because it's Recovery from Codependency, Inner Child Healing. So I'm just going to read through here and, take a look at this and we'll just chat about it. But he says, it is through healing our inner child, our inner children, by grieving the wounds that we suffered, that we can change our behavior patterns and clear our emotional process. And we can release the grief that it's pent up, with its pent up rage, shame, terror, and pain from those feelings which exist within us. So he says that does not mean that the wound will ever be completely healed. There will always be a tender spot, a painful place within us due to the experiences that we have had. What it does mean is that we can take the power away from those wounds by bringing them out of the darkness into the light, by releasing the energy. We can heal them enough so that they do not have the power to dictate how we live our lives today. And he says we can heal them enough to change the quality of our lives dramatically, and we can heal them enough to truly be happy, joyous, and free in the moment most of the time. So this is from his book, excerpts from his book, and I like what he has to say there. It's like we may not ever fully, get over some of this. I don't think anybody really may get completely over being so wounded, especially as a child, right? It's hard to make sense of it, and sometimes there's just a emptiness and a feeling of sadness, for a lot of people who have been abused. It's kind of, you can't go back and change the past, right? So the past is always what it is. It's the past. And so you have to learn how to, I guess, through his pages, like what Robert Burney talks about, is accepting all of that stuff. And for me, what I'm learning to do is actually realize that I can't change the past. I can't change that at all. But what I can change is how I feel about myself today and how I feel about my life now. You know what I mean? And to sort of work from there. And so it is helpful, you know what I mean, to keep, going on your healing journey. And, just it doesn't happen overnight. It sometimes you need help with it, right? That's why I always encourage people. Like, I know myself, if I couldn't do self-help, then I would go get a counselor. I would go find a therapist. Like, I feel like I'm making real progress with self-help, but not everybody can do that, depending on what the issues are and the severity of the abuse and so many different things. So you don't want to feel bad because you have to go get a counselor or a therapist. Like we should, as survivors of abuse, and that's any kind of abuse, whether it's child abuse, domestic violence, and abuse, whatever it is, we should allow ourselves to get help, whatever that help is. Like my two brothers, I talk about this a lot on my show here because it really bothers me that two of my brothers did not get any help, and they had the opportunity. It's not like they didn't have the opportunity and that people didn't try to help them, and that they couldn't have gone and got a counselor, got a therapist, learned how to deal with and cope in this life, and actually learn to enjoy this life. And they're both dead, and one from suicide and the other one from drug overdose, in their 30s. And so, I thought that's the way my life was going to go. Because I associated with my brothers. I did the same things they did. I did drugs. I was involved in illegal activity. It was like leading this really violent lifestyle all the way through until my 20s. And, I realized like I was heading down that same road. You know what I mean? And I thought, man, I do not want to end up like that. That was a horrible example in front of me. And what it did was it sort of set something in place for me that said, look, I don't want to end up like that. And so as survivors of abuse and dysfunction and all this garbage that we've had to put up with as children, we shouldn't let that dictate our lives. But we have to learn how to help ourselves. We have to become our best advocates. So like if self-help doesn't work, then I would totally suggest a counselor or therapist, because that's what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Because I made a commitment to myself to allow myself to get help, to allow myself to reach out, right? Because I was just doing this on my own for so many years, not even trying to heal, or didn't even, occur to me that I should get help. Because as a child growing up in a home being abused, you're not getting any help. And so you learn to deal with things on your own, and you think that's good enough. And whatever the outcome is, it's kind of the way it goes. And that's really unfortunate, because so many people, including myself, allow themselves to suffer through for so many years. Because, I didn't start my healing journey until I was 41. So, it's like, I wish I would have done this years and years ago, because, I'd be so much farther along right now. But we just, we don't, for whatever reason, we don't do these things. And now I'm working on trying to allow myself to get help for my physical issues. Which I absolutely hate, going to the doctor. I don't like people touching me. I don't like doctors looking at me. I don't like anybody looking at me, because what it is, it's a fear that they're going to see something that I don't want them to see. You know what I mean? And that's what happened when I was taken into the hospital when I had the car accident and they had to have surgery and stuff, and the x-rays and stuff. Those doctors saw stuff that, was quite embarrassing for me to have to tell them. They were like, well, how did this happen? And how did you get that? And it's kind of like, well, you either lie and you say, well, I fell down, or I hurt myself, or whatever, or you tell the truth and you say, well, I was abused as a child. So, it's quite embarrassing. It's harsh, and nobody should have to deal with that. I don't even like to go to gynecologists, because the first time I went, they told me I wasn't a virgin, and I was pissed off because in my mind, I thought I was a virgin. You know what I mean? I really did. And it pissed me off that this woman says, you're not a virgin. And I was like, yes, I am. And she's like, no, you're not. And I was like, I am so. But what happens if you're abused as a child and you're sexually used as a child, there is absolutely nothing you can do about that. That was not my fault, And at the time when I was in my 20s, when I went to the gynecologist, I was just like devastated. I obviously did not want to say, well, I was sexually abused as a child. It is so heartbreaking. It is. I know where people are coming from. You know what I mean? I know what people are having to deal with, and it's incredibly hard. And so if you're just sitting around on your own and suffering in silence and whatnot and not getting any help and not, able to cope and feeling really down, you so deserve to be feeling so much, to get some help, and ultimately it is up to us to do that. So that's why I'm always saying, on my shows, like whatever kind of help it is, right? Like whether it's your own self-help or allowing somebody else to help, but whatever it is, we certainly do deserve to get some help, right? So, like, that's what he says. We can heal these wounds, enough to change the quality of our lives dramatically. We can heal them enough to truly be happy, joyous, and free in the moment most of the time. And I think that's the goal, is to allow ourselves to feel better, so we can enjoy this life, right? I mean, there's no rule that says an abused person or an abused child has to suffer their whole entire life. That's what I thought, right? That's what I thought for so many years, is that I was just going to have to suffer on and, be miserable and unhappy with myself and my past, for my whole life. And I'm starting to realize that's not true at all. I can experience joy, I can experience happiness, and I can have peace in my heart and peace in my life. And we do have to be really careful what we're doing, and we have to make the right choices for ourselves, and that has a lot to do with it. And we have to treat ourselves better, allow ourselves to get some help or be able to talk to somebody, just get some sort of, support, right? Because so many times we don't have that support, and especially within our own families. I've got some guests here this morning. Thanks very much for being here. And I have Gypsy Witch with me here this morning. Hello, Gypsy Witch. And so he says here, he goes on to say, codependency recovery, inner child healing is a way of life. It is a way to live life that works. It works to help an individual gain some freedom from the past. It is a path for living that facilitates developing a centered ground space within where inner peace exists, and it creates the space for a person to be present in the moment and be happy to be alive, to connect with joy some of the time. I think that's awesome, right? Because that's what, I think that's not everybody's going to be happy 100% of the time, and that's even people who were not abused. I mean, have bad days. I mean, come on, it's just reality. Even people who had the greatest childhoods in the world will experience bad days and bad times. I mean, it's life, right? Life will throw these things at us that causes, people to be down, or people to be mad, or people to be upset, or we're not going to be 100% happy all the time. But I think at the end of the day, when you sit back and you think this life is good. And even through some of the bad stuff going on, it still can be good. And I think that's where that's where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? It's like I know there's going to be some bad days, and there's obviously going to be things that happen in someone's life that just throws you for a loop, But I think it's allowing ourselves to realize that we are going to have bad days, and that's okay. And we can learn to deal and cope with it. Right? So he says, it is not something we do and then get on with our lives. It's something we do in order to truly be alive. This recovering from codependency and abuse, right? Life is a process, a journey. By being willing to do the inner child healing, we can learn to be present for the journey and have the capacity to actually relax and enjoy it at times. And he says, one of the most very valuable things that I have learned in my recovery is echoed in something that I often say to people when I first start to work with them. Most of my counseling work is done by phone these days, and often I will end the first session by saying, everything that happens in your life from now on is part of this process. So that's quite interesting. He's a therapist and a counselor, but he's also a survivor. So he knows what it's like to be on the other side. And he says, we are here to do this healing. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are in a body at this very special time in history to do this healing work. And the inner child healing work is part of our spiritual evolutionary journey. And doing this work requires consciousness raising enlightenment. And we need to become conscious of our inner child, of our own inner process. By developing the detached observer, witness, detective, defense attorney, compassionate parent level of consciousness, the more conscious we become, the easier it is to see how powerful our reactive programming has been. And by becoming conscious of it, we can change it. That's so true. Because, that's like me. I'm looking at my inner child. For years I didn't pay any attention to that at all. And all of my decisions were dictated by how I was feeling inside of my inner child and all the stuff that I had gone through in the past. And it was almost all defensive behaviorism, like just defensive, always was trying to protect myself and always trying to, keep people away and like push people away in every kind of relationship, really. And, and that was just a defense mechanism to say, you're not going to hurt me because I'm not going to allow it, because I'll kick you out of my life really fast. And so, it was difficult for me to maintain relationships. And until I realized that, that my inner child was dictating my life, really, I didn't realize that she was making the decisions for me. So I have an adult woman who has an 8-year-old deciding what I'm going to do, and an 8-year-old doesn't necessarily know what's good for me, but she does need help and she needs protection. That little person inside of me, and so I need to actually learn how to really get in touch with this whole inner child thing, and I'm still working on that. Like, it takes time. Like, it doesn't happen overnight, and I think, especially for me, because I'm just doing my healing journey in small pieces, every day, a little bit, right? And so, I don't have like hours and hours and hours to sit and work on this stuff. And so I just do it little piece by little piece, but I find it works for me because I don't spend so much time out of the moment, like the present. I only allow myself to be in the past, or to be in the past abuse, and to think about this stuff for this period of time in my day. And then the rest of the day, I'm in the here and the now, which is I think it's very helpful, because I didn't used to be that way. I used to be in the past most of the time, and only in the present a very short period of time in the day, because I would be having flashbacks and memories, and it would take over my day. And so I wasn't really in the present all day long. You know what I mean? I would only be in the present, in the here and now, when I had to be. And the rest of the time I was actually doing the opposite. I was in the past, not in the present. And I think now I've switched it around. Now I'm in the present, in the moment, living my life, which is great. I've started to feel like I've got some control there. And now I spend very little time out of the moment looking at the past, but I do it in manageable chunks. So it is very helpful, and I find that what it did was it allowed me to go through this work and still be able to manage my day, work, and have these relationships, and clean my apartment or whatever. Not that I clean that much, but just to be able to do these things, go to the store or whatever, and not be so overpowered by these issues from the past, right? And that's just memories and flashbacks and whatnot, right? And feelings, being down and depressed or whatever. So it has helped me to do this. I think it just set up like I don't know what you want to even call it, like a process for me, right? But I just didn't do it consciously. It just happened, right? And I think that it's been working for me. So whatever works, don't fix it. You know what I mean? If it works, it's great. And so it seems to be helping me a lot. I don't spend hardly any time. I don't have hardly any flashbacks anymore. You know what I mean? And that's really good, because those things were rather obtrusive. Like, I'd be at work working, no problem, and then have a flashback, and it set me off for the day. I'd be bummed out. I'd be depressed, and nobody would know why. I mean, it's obvious that I wouldn't sit there and say, oh, I just had a flashback, But I mean, then my mood would change. Could throw a whole damper on my whole day. And so I don't have those anymore, because I don't spend so much time, not in the moment, right? I just allow myself to look at this stuff, during periods of time during the day, and then I just shut it off, because I need to be able to live now, here and now too. But for everybody's different, right? And everybody needs different things. And that's why I say, like, whatever it is, that's what we deserve to get, whether it's therapist, counselor, whatever works for us, that we should allow ourselves to get that, because we should realize that none of this was our fault in the first place, and we're just having to deal with the aftermath. You know what I mean? So it's like, why should we suffer as adults from something that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago? It's absolutely pathetic. But the thing is that's the sad part, is that it's real. It's not something that that we do on purpose. It's not. That's what I'm saying. That's why we really can't take responsibility for that. What we have to take responsibility for is allowing ourselves to get help. That is our responsibility, totally. So he says, the inner child work is part of our spiritual evolutionary journey. So he says, doing this work requires consciousness. So we need to become conscious of our own inner process, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, is just allowing ourselves to really see the process and what we need to do. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. By being willing to get more conscious, we can start to reprogram our ego programming by using positive affirmations and self-talk, by developing a spiritual belief system that allows us to start being compassionate and loving to ourselves. And that's what I did right away. I actually started that right away, and without even realizing what I was doing, because I realized 4 years ago when I started my healing journey, that I needed to start to learn to love myself. I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this if I don't learn to truly love myself and stop judging myself by how my parents saw me and how my family sees me, how the world sees me, and not worry so much about what they think, and really change the way that I feel about myself, because that's what's most important. And the rest of the world, they may have one view of me. I really don't care, to be honest with you. They're not living my life, and they don't have, it doesn't matter to me what they think. Whereas before it used to bother me. because obviously my family, I mean, I talk a lot about my family, but the thing is, they don't have a view of me that's positive. They think, and they would deny it if somebody said, "Do you really think that, that she's not doing so well, she's a loser, and that she's just, oversensitive and blah blah blah," or whatever they would say, unmotivated, whatever they would say, and they would probably say, "No, we don't think that at all." But when they're talking to me, they tell me the most rude things that is proof to me that that's how they feel. And so, they say things like, my sister says stuff all the time, like, "You're just like our brothers. You're just a loser." Okay, like, that's real supportive. Thanks, sis. You know what I mean? And what I usually tell her in that case is, I'm glad to be just like my brothers. Thank you very much. I love my brothers very much. And so it's not an insult to me. It's an insult to her, because well, my sister was abused too, so there you go. She's messed up, right? And so what are you going to do, right? I don't go around judging their lives, their personal lives. They do great. They're doing wonderful. And, whether or not they want to be on their healing journey, that's their own business. But they are always running me down, making me out to be this black sheep of the family, this bad child that deserved to be beaten on and be, kicked around, and including to be sexually abused. And I mean, that's ridiculous, because no child ever deserves that. And, there was no help. There was no help from my siblings, no help from my parents, obviously. And I'm supposed to, care what they think about me? Who really cares? I really don't. And, so what I had to do was stop thinking about them, start thinking about myself, and not worry about them. And that's that whole codependency thing. I had to really take a good look at what codependency is, and realize that it makes no difference to me what they're doing. They are hurtful people. They don't need to be in my life. They can't come here and sit on my couch and say, "I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing." But for real, I'm so glad, because I'm glad to see that, you're doing great, and you're just, you're healing, and you're allowing yourself to heal. Wonderful. You've got a nice man in your life, and you've had this nice man in your life for 16 years, and you guys are, you're doing wonderful. They can't even do that for me. They can't come sit on the couch and tell me, "I'm sorry that all this stuff happened to you as a child and to us, right? And we should have protected you," because they did absolutely nothing to protect me, in the home. So they were actually some of my abusers. So, I never got any. They just expect that I would just continue to take their garbage. So that's why I have a real issue with that. That's why I cut them off, because they just expect me to play the role. That's why John Bradshaw, he talks a lot about codependency, also that toxic shame stuff. And he says, that we're given these roles to play as children, and by our parents and by our siblings and by everybody else. And they expect us to play out these roles, all the way through our lives. So we could be, I don't know, in our 40s and still playing these roles, right? So they expect that I'm just going to continue to take their garbage and play that role that I played forever. And so, because I tore up that script, I tore up that life script, and I wrote myself a new script that doesn't have anything to do with them. They don't like that. Right? Because now I'm not playing their game anymore, right? That whole role that they set up for me. John Bradshaw has a lot of good stuff on that. So if anybody's looking for good information about role playing, the different roles that people will take on through in these dysfunctional type of homes and dysfunctional relationships and whatnot, these roles, John Bradshaw has some great information. So if you want to check his website out, I don't have his actual website, but if you type into your browser John Bradshaw, Bradshaw, he's got great stuff on codependency, and he's got a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You, and it's really, really good stuff, especially about role playing. So, I got myself a new life script, right? And so I don't have to play the same roles, right? And that's the whole issue with, we have to allow ourselves to treat ourselves well, and to set those boundaries, and not let other people bring us back down to where they had us before. And that's why I cut my family off. It was a crucial time for me to make sure that I set the boundaries, because what would have happened is, if I wouldn't have cut my family off, all the same stuff would have continued, and I was having trouble with the boundaries, because they don't understand the boundaries, because they're not on their healing journey. And so they think it's okay to still hurt you and say horrible things to you, like my dad, saying stuff about my mother, and he'll never change. He's always going to call her names, and she's been in the grave 16 years, and he's still going to call her a whore and all this stuff, and he's a horrible man. And that's a boundary that he crosses with me every time he talks to me. I don't even want, to hear the garbage that comes out of his mouth. So, for me to hang around dysfunctional, mentally ill people is not a good idea, because I'm on my healing journey, right? So I have to be very careful to set those boundaries, and only allow myself to be, sort of hanging around with people who are going to support me in my healing journey. And I think it's very important. Just because somebody's family, like a lot of people probably think, oh, you're a horrible person to cut your family off like that. Well, they weren't doing anything for me anyway, and I wasn't doing anything for them. It's not like we were supporting each other. The only thing is now I just don't talk to them, right, on the phone or whatever. Like, I just don't talk to them because I cut them off because they are still so dysfunctional. They're still so unable to be supportive, and they really don't care. They hate what I'm doing. They actually don't like it. They don't like the fact that I've come forward and told the story, and they don't even like the fact that I'm working with dream catchers for abused children to help stop child abuse. They hate that. Because they think it's okay to beat your children, right? They think it's okay to sexually use your children. If you ask them, they would say, no, we don't. But you know what? They do. Because I told my sister I was sexually abused as a child, and she sat there and did not say a thing. And my sister knows that Dad used to rape my mother. My dad raped my mother in front of me one time. And he knows, my sister knows that my dad used to do that, and she thinks it's okay. You know what I mean? She's messed up. You know what I mean? And my brother, same thing. He was abused as a child. He abused his own child, and then he thinks it's okay that you should be able to beat your children and do whatever you want to your children. And, they're just mentally ill. They're just sick. So why would I want to hang around with them? So see, for anybody who thinks that I'm a horrible person for cutting my family off, well, too bad, right? Because you can't hang around with abusers all your life. I mean, I cut them off because I decided, okay, how many years do I really want to give to my abusers? These people are my abusers. They're my torturers. Why would I want to hang around with them? They're not doing anything positive for me except for running me down, making me feel bad. And now they can't hit me and beat me up. I mean, I can just press charges. But the thing is like they can come into my life, manipulate me, try to get me to feel bad about, not doing this, not doing that, whatever they expect me to be doing. And they don't like the fact that I'm standing up and speaking out against abuse. So forget that. I really don't care. You know what I mean? For all those, for people who would think that they can come in and tell me how to live my life, they can kiss my, what. So, yeah, that's just it. We have to set boundaries. And, especially growing up abused and in a dysfunctional environment, we don't even know what those boundaries are until we really find out what they are. So, I did a lot of boundary work already. I think it's really important for people to do that, right? Because it's too easy as a survivor of abuse to keep taking abuse, right, from everybody, because it's like we're used to it. We're used to allowing people to run us over, run us down, put us down, beat us up, whatever it is, right? Forget that, you know what I mean? Like, put my foot down and said, no, that's it. I treat people with respect. I want the same respect, right? And I treat people decently. I want the same decent treatment. I'm not asking for any more, no less, the same, right? And so as a human being, we don't deserve to be abused. We never did as children, so I know lots of people who listen to my show, are survivors. And I mean, I keep saying this on every show, and you hear it everywhere that, we didn't deserve this. And you know what? It's so true. Like, no one should ever hurt a child like that, not ever. Sometimes people do, make mistakes with parenting because who's a perfect parent? There's no perfect anything, right? But the thing is a good parent will try to make up for that. They will try to, if a good parent, if they hurt their child, will try to make up for it and won't do it again. And they will change their behavior so that they don't hurt their children. You know what I mean? And a good so many parents. I mean, parents are parents, and people are people, and they make mistakes. The whole idea is to make it right and to set it right. You know what I mean? And to try not to hurt your family. And but what abusers? They don't think they're doing anything wrong. That's what's wrong with abusers. Like, my dad thought it was perfectly okay that he raped my mother, like, because she wouldn't give in to his sexual demands because she was really sick. I mean, she was so physically sick that she just like, couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And my dad would just force himself on her, and he just thought that was fine. He didn't care about her body. He didn't care about her mind. I mean, he destroyed her, right? And then my mother in turn destroyed us, and so did my dad. So they were just destructive, rotten people, right? Which is really, really sad. But they didn't start out that way. They started out innocent kids who were abused themselves, and they just went right on into the cycle, right? Really sad. So, we have to make sure we get some help and not allow people to abuse us just because they're in our family or they're our friends or they're our coworkers. I mean, come on. We don't have to take that from anybody. We give respect. We deserve respect, right? So, then again, I have to check my own behaviors and make sure that I'm not abusive to other people, because then I'm just an abuser. So we can't do what our parents did. We can't do, excuse me, what the abusers did. So, yeah, my voice is terrible. It's horrible. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have about a minute left. We'll finish this off tomorrow. And, you can take a look at this. This is from www.joy2 to you and me. That's joy2, the number 2, MEU.com. Robert Birdie's webpage is really good stuff. So take care, everybody. Reach out and get some help if you're suffering and you can't do it and you're just like, you can't cope. You make sure that you do something, that you call a crisis line if you can't reach somebody. You do not allow yourself to suffer, to hurt yourself, or to not be able to cope. You make sure that you get some help, right? Don't allow yourself to suffer in silence and by yourself, because we certainly deserve to have a good life, and so do you. So stick around, make the right decisions for yourself, right? It's so important. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.